Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let me make sure this is up because I was getting weird behavior last time. Yeah, I lost the signal in the last come on. I lost signal in the last video and had to restart. Alright, so I am seeing green all around. The world is good. Somebody told me scoot over in the last video. Alright, that's better. How can I start this? Alright, this is going to be bleak, but it's going to get better in the end. And I have a point to make. Now, Cenk Ugyur is never going to see this. Cal Kalinske is probably never going to see this. But in case they do, in case some random person gets it to them and they're like, holy shit, somebody is responding to us about something, this will be the video. I saw the Justice Democrats saying right off the bat when they first did it, and I thought it's an awesome idea because it's an idea I had beforehand. And the more it went on, I thought, I'm not liking this. This seems to be a bad idea, and the idea seems to be getting worse. With this idea of a media company being fused with a political body, it just seems weird. But going beyond that for the moment, whether or not it's a good idea or not, to take it to a more basic level. Personally, I think this is doomed for failure. Now, let me get my point. And I think there's a better path to go with this. I think the strategy is just bad strategy. Even though I take what they're doing is genuine, if that makes sense. Like, there's no dark motives from my standpoint. I accept that for the most part they think, okay, this is a good idea for us to do. We need to do something. And so this is the strategy we're going to go with. So I take their motives of being genuine. I've heard Cenk Ugyur say he was a capitalist. I'm not a capitalist, but at the very least, I think they're trying to go in the direction that I want to go. My issue with this is I think it's immensely doomed for failure. I guess that's my point. But let me make my explanation first. Let me make my argument. I should have thought about this beforehand. Usually I have a feeling for things, and then based on feeling, I kind of go with it. In this particular case, I guess my feeling is we assume for the moment that you are not where you currently are. It's like assume for the moment that you're 500 years into the future. Now, when I look at people currently in politics, I think people are just people. Meaning, you know, oh, better yet, a better starting point. I am going to be a Scrooge for the moment, but I'm going to be a Scrooge because I want to get a point across. That cute little baby that you saw, that cute bundle of joy, that baby is going to get decrepit and die. It's going to get some kind of illness. It's going to get some kind of disease. It's going to become deformed. It's going to die. There's no such thing as Santa Claus. Recycling from an individual standpoint doesn't necessarily help. It just makes you feel better. It's like, oh, I feel great. I'm saving the earth. You're not saving the earth. The earth is still fucked over. Large industries, for the most part, is causing issues associated with our environment and our climate. You as an individual, not so much. Now, don't get me wrong. You give it a certain amount of approval, but that approval is somewhat, it's forced upon you. You got to get to work. You got to eat. You got to, etc. When you're looking at political corruption, an individual who's in those offices, for the most part, behave in ways that are perfectly logical to behave. If integrity is expensive, integrity is expensive. If doing the right thing is expensive, doing the right thing is expensive. If you come into my shop and I tell you, look, this auto guy who's over there who's going to fix your car, it's not really that good. You should go to the business across the street. I would lose my business and I would go bankrupt. People have a vested interest in doing things to advantage those people. It's like, I need to feed my family. Is my integrity, I'm sorry, I couldn't get the money to pay for the kids, whatever, because, my integrity got in the way. If integrity is expensive, you're going to have a society that, for the most part, pushes integrity to the corner. Congratulations. That's just the world you got. When we're talking about Hillary Clinton, we're talking about one of those politicians in office. We're saying these guys are getting bribed and they're leaning a particular way. Of course they're getting bribed and leaning a particular way. That's a human thing to do. Now, the question becomes, if you were in that office, if you were in that position, would you do the same thing? My bet is yes. My bet is you would behave the same way. If my bet is right, and And look, this is not saying everybody's the same. I just think people function at the lowest energy level. I think they get complicit in the way that they go about a typical business. And when they go about typical business in a particular way, particularly when it advantages them, they're going to take on behaviors and demeanors that think that this is the way things are. So you get this level of corruption built into it just because of the way the system itself is set up. If you went into that particular system, you will probably behave in the exact same way. That means your issue is systemic. Your issue is not necessarily the individual. If you build a society that's based upon these ideological principles that is not necessarily taking the person into account, you're going to get a batshit crazy society. You're going to have people, the normal flow, the normal way in which those people act and behave is being blocked by the society that you have, was being corrupted in some way. Then yeah, you're going to get a society full of crazy people. Now the thought is, well, people just behave this way, completely forgetting the fact that you're enmeshed in a culture, in a society. It's like fish dying off saying, well, what? Fish just die this way. Pretending as if the water that those fish are in is irrelevant to the whole process. You're enmeshed in a culture. You're enmeshed in a society. There are certain values, or certain things that are pushed upon you in this kind of it's almost soft pressure way. But you as a human being is wired in a particular way where you understand culture. You understand the prevailing wind. You understand that this is different. This is odd. This is not necessarily what society typically does. The problem is the way that the society organizes itself is antagonistic towards the people's normal way of acting. You get aberrant behavior in your particular society. That's not necessarily because the people are horrible. That's because your society is arranged in a particular way. Assume for the moment that that's true, because it is true. If you were raised on Vulcan, you'd act like a Vulcan. If you were raised in China, you act Chinese. Assume for the moment it's true. Put your doubts to the side for the moment. If that's what I believe, then I'm stuck with a problem. How do you get people to behave better in a society that tells them not to behave that way? How do you wake people up in a society that essentially gets people to not wake up? How do you do it? I have no answer to that. I suspect you're not going to be able to do major changes because you can't do major changes. Now, for the moment, pretend as if you're 500 years in the future. Pretend as if the society has collapsed. Meaning, from your standpoint, all of this is prehistory. You're looking at us in the way we look at Romans and Greeks and whatever. From your standpoint, we've had another nuclear war. We've had ecological collapse. Those things have taken place. From your standpoint, you're over the hump. From your standpoint, in your society, you have this hegemonic view that humanity should come first. That they try this other thing with putting items above this actual real thing of human beings and above the planet itself, and it led to ruin. Your value system is different. It would never occur to you to have somebody who's homeless. You don't know what that looks like. You think that's fucking insane. It would never occur to you to even have debt. For you, from your standpoint, every day looks and feels like a Sunday because you don't necessarily have those things pulling and tugging on you, things that you need to do. You have responsibilities, yes, but you don't have credit card debt. You don't have this thing where you're eating at McDonald's and they're giving you shitty food. You don't have this thing where you're having trouble keeping your weight. You don't have these societal factors that work against being a human being. To you, it would be insane. You would not understand it from that perspective. Now, I want you to look at it this way because even though from that perspective you had your collapse, you've had all of these things that take place. From our standpoint, that's where we're trying to move to. Now, no, we don't want to go through the nuclear apocalypse. No, we don't want to go through an environmental collapse. No, we don't. But assume for the moment, what does it take politically to get you from here to get you to there? And understand, I have no expectation of getting there in our particular lifetime. I'm just saying, what moves the ball closer to that particular scenario? Understand, it's not utopia. Things evolve. There are always going to be problems. Human beings interact with one another. There's going to be problems. The question becomes a level of problems and a level of sustainability and a level of... let me say it this way. What you go for in that particular society is not necessarily cash, it's achievement. It's making yourself better. Those are very different things. You're improving the society itself. You're not necessarily trying to get this purely wealth acquisition. The wealth acquisition in this case wouldn't exist. What moves you to that point, though? Like, what gets you closer to that particular point? This means that a right-wing solution is off the table. There is no right-wing solution. Now, if I accept that there is no right-wing solution, that vehicle is the left. The left vehicle in this country is the Democratic Party. I would make the case that the left vehicle in this country is a right-wing party. For the most part, this country has been hoodwinked into thinking that there were two actual parties. You have one party that's batshit crazy, and you have this other party who decided that because they're batshit crazy, we can do whatever the hell we want. We can take all the cash and all the money and do whatever we want. We're going to talk like FDR. Yes. But we're going to govern the shit like Ronald Reagan. And that's what they've done. Now, Justice Democrats, Cenk Ugyur, their idea was, this is fucking insane. These guys are bought and paid for, and nothing's going to get accomplished with the Democratic Party. And I agree with them. Fucking right. They're right. Then they took the position, we're going to run people as a news agency to challenge the Democrats. And that's where you lost me. The reason you lost me there is because the public is primed for this idea of two parties. Meaning, so in that part, I agree with them. I understand where they're coming from. But the Democrats aren't scared of your candidates. I understand what I mean. The money that you guys are spending and you're putting behind candidates, the Democrats are not afraid of those candidates. What the Democrats are afraid of is losing to Republicans. The reason why the West Virginia Democrat, Joe Manchin, the reason why that Dino came on to, TYT to have a conversation with Cenk Ugyur is because he wasn't scared of Swearengin. He was scared of the Republican. Joe Manchin and many of these Democrats understand that if they don't necessarily get the progressive vote, they're going to lose. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're afraid of the candidates, because these candidates are not going to be funded to the degree that they are funded. So, just understand my point. Follow my logic. So, yes, they would say, they would come on the network, they would, do whatever they have to say to try to get past the progressive, which they will. They're scared of the Republican. They're scared of losing. Now, your strength in this, and I make this contention before, the strength in this is making them lose. That sounds bad. That sounds harsh. That has real world consequences in regards to the short term. Do I believe anything that the Democratic Party is going to do is going to get me to that point? We are functioning on very different ends, meaning they're not my party. I can't stand the Republican Party. I think they're batshit crazy. But if I'm stuck with a scenario where the only thing that gets me to the left is the left-leaning party, then that party needs to be different. The party needs to be destroyed until it can be different. I understand you're running your candidates against these guys, but I'm just making a point that I don't think your candidates are going to win. I think your candidates are going to lose. Now, they're scared of losing to the Republicans. I would say maximize the fear that's associated with them losing to Republicans. Your strategy is not necessarily wrong. Pushing them to the left, meaning forcing them to be further to the left, forcing them to be scared of a threat that's coming from the left, is fair game. But they have to actually be scared of the threat that's coming from the left. The threat I would pose to you that should come from the left is, you don't get our vote in mass. You just lose. You just lose. Now, I could spend a bunch of money on candidates all across the country, or I can maximize that idea that you are going to lose. You're going to lose. You've lost 66 of 99 state legislatures. How about losing 77 of 99? How about losing more? You can lose more. Like, I'm making this point that en masse progressives need to come to this understanding that that party does not represent your interests, and you need to start something new, or you let them fail. Now, I watched Cenk Ugyur have this conversation about Tom Perez purging all these Bernie cracks and everything else. And I watched it because I was curious about what the guy who voted for Hillary Clinton and turned his network to say vote for Hillary Clinton and put Nomi Kant on the Unity Commission, TYT, Democratic functionaries to some degree. I watched because I was curious on what he was going to say. Meaning, I turned my station to say vote for Hillary Clinton. Yes, I say I'm against Democrats. Yes, I say I'm against their strategy and everything else. But I'm terrified of Donald Trump, so I need you to vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm going to attack Donald Trump relentlessly. Now, don't get me wrong. They hit Democrats also. I'm just saying, when it came to brass tacks, they cheated your guy. They cheated your guy. And you turned around and voted for the team that cheated your guy. And that team lost. They've lost their legitimacy to govern. You're pretending and playing around in this game, trying to put your candidates up, but still supporting Democrats because Republicans are batshit crazy. Ultimately means you're just still supporting Democrats. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if your candidates lose. Ultimately, you're still going to support the Democrat. And I'm saying that's a problem. The strategy that you need to go with, that your entire network should have went with, was, we're balking at this. You don't represent our interests. You're not getting our vote. We're okay with you failing miserably. Yes, we're putting candidates up to run. You either elect our candidate or you fail miserably. You push them to the left because they fully understand that if they don't move to the left, they fail miserably. That's your strategy. I'd argue that the money that you guys are using is best spent in mobilizing mobilizing workers. I don't know how much money you guys are getting in your coffers. 50% of this country is in poverty. Are you telling me that you can't mobilize a percentage of that? Look, whether that's Walmart workers, whether that's Old Navy workers, whether they're McDonald's workers, Wendy's, Burger King, whatever, these people are getting screwed. You putting your candidate up is a premature attack. That's what I'm saying. That's my issue with it. You don't have the groundswell. You have a lot of people who dislike Democrats, but ultimately they continue to vote for the Democrat. You said yourself, the person with the most money usually wins 90-something% of the time. You're not going to outraise them. You're not going to outraise them. So if that's true, and it is, and you're not going to outraise them, which you're not, then is it a good strategy to right off the bat just drop a bunch of money into candidates who will likely not win? Or is that money best spent trying to find people to go out and get workers into political alignment all throughout the nation? I'd argue that you get more bang for your buck with these guys in political alignment than you would with the candidates. Or for that matter, if you wanted to put up straw candidates just to scare the shit out of the Democrats while at the same time doing the other thing. Either way, I'm just making this point that the groundswell that you need comes from the masses of the public itself. You have pitchforks or you have dollars. You don't have dollars. You don't have dollars. Your strength in this is people. That's what I'm saying. I admire the gumption, so don't get me wrong. I get the gumption. I understand where you're coming from. I'm skeptical that the party is afraid of you. And because I'm skeptical that it's afraid of you, I don't think what you're going to do is going to pass the muster. That's all. Tom Perez purged one Bernie-crat after the next. One. He voted for Hillary Clinton. Now, Tom Perez gets up there, and this Unity Commission, screw the Unity Commission. I'm putting in donors. I'm pulling in one lobbyist, one corporatist after the next. And yes, I'm getting rid of these Bernie-crats, so people who supported Keith Ellison. It doesn't look like they're all that scared of you, dude. It doesn't look like what you're talking about is having any effect on the party itself. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Again, I don't think the idea is horrible. I understand the premise. But what's better? A mob of people organized by some organization, a news network. And it's not crazy to me at all to organize a mob of people with a news network. Or politicians who are put up, who don't necessarily push their agenda forward, and Democrats run, and you fall in line with the Democrat because you're a particular person lost. Until you get the balls to say no, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're always going to be complicit and you're always going to, at the end of the day, vote for the person who you're saying doesn't represent your interests, then you're awarding them for something they're not doing. Not to mention, all this talk of progressivism and everything else kind of goes out the window if you're perfectly okay to fall in line with the party that doesn't represent your interests and that's been lying the entire time. Strategy, it's not going to work. I would argue the strategy is failing. And ultimately, if you really, really want to get something concrete, and look, I could be wrong. You could have a year come up and these guys are just going gangbusters. Fair enough. If so, I would do a video saying I was completely wrong. These guys blew my fucking mind. I was completely wrong on this. My acumen was off. So that's possible. Fair enough. I'm a person. I can fuck up. If you're going to get from point A to point B, I would argue that you need a groundswell of support and you need a groundswell of people. And I don't know if the politicians that you guys are putting up is going to be able to get that level of support without the funding on a massive, massive scale. Unless you have numbers. And this is kind of my point where I say this kind of groundswell. The numbers is your friend. The numbers is your buddy. You can make an argument against both parties. And I'd wager that the public will be amicable to that argument. Yeah, they would like that argument. Or I think at the very least they'd go with that argument. Starting with the politicians seem premature. Now, I don't say that it's a bad thing. I say that in the sense of just saying I disagree. But again, I take it that the original premise of this was in good conscience. I just think it's doomed for failure. So, let's take a few questions. They never get more than 5% of the vote. Jay Scott. Yeah, this is kind of yeah. That's yeah. MJ Wing. They have had better candidates than others have. Luca Clemente. Cenk talks tough, but he folded when the shit hit the fan. Right there. Right there. Understand my logic on this. It's not that I want Republicans in office. Republicans are fucking terrifying. They're batshit crazy. But you understand that the reason why Republicans have become more rabid is because Democrats have moved so far to the right. When they moved to the right, it wasn't like Republicans said, oh, okay, I agree with you. Both of us in perfect agreement now. Let's keep going. They're going to say, hey, they moved to the right. We're going to move to the right. How much more can we get out of this? So that's my first point. The second point is, if you, as a leftist, as a person in general, don't have the balls to say no, then you get what you get. At that point, it's one of those things where you're essentially being complicit because you're so terrified of the other guy. This guy has you by the short and curlies because you don't have the balls to walk away. I'm saying having the balls to walk away is better off than just taking what you continuously get, which is not something that meets your interests. That's my point. That's my position. If you're going to, at the end of the day, fold when your candidate loses, what does it matter if your goal, goal in this is to win. The goal of this is to win. I win to some degree when Democrats lose. This is not a common cause thing. Ultimately, they don't represent my interests, which means I need them to be different. Do I get them to be different by just continuously voting for them when they fuck your interests over? For example, are you going to vote for the Democrats after they purge all these people from the DNC? And why would you vote for the Democrats after they purge these people from the DNC? It's very clear on what their interests are. Their interest is to double down. I understand you burners exist. Go fuck yourselves. Fair enough. I'm going to fuck myself and I'm leaving your party. I'm not going to vote for the members of your party. If you're going to purge the people who we want in that positions, we're not going to vote for your party. I was about to say that's a man's position, but that's an adult's position. Not being fearful. Not being fearful, not being complacent. Not just saying, okay, you purged us. We don't have anything else to do. I'm going to get on my talk show and bitch about it. You make it hurt. You make it hurt where it matters. If Joe Manchin is scared to lose to a Republican, Joe Manchin should be scared to lose to a Republican. If this guy in Virginia is scared to be losing to a Republican, he should be scared of losing to a Republican. They all should be scared of losing to Republicans, particularly if they're purging out people who you believe should be in those positions that you yourself believe are leftists. Why would you give them votes when they're not necessarily representing your interests? I don't understand this part. I fundamentally don't understand this. If I am sitting at work and I am just dicking around for 8 hours and I'm not doing my task. Now look, everybody dicks around for a little bit of time, but if I'm dicking around the entirety of the time in perpetuity, day after day after day after day, am I going to get paid? Are you going to get paid? Why are you paying them with your vote when they're going clearly against your interests? And I'd argue going so far as to say sticking a thumb in your eye to try to break you in the sense of saying you are not getting squat from us. We are doubling down on what we are. Yes, we lost everything. No, we don't have legitimacy, but god damn it, we have the pocket, we have the money. We're going to double down on what we are. So yes, I'm going to purge all those people who were screaming about an immunity commission. I'm going to purge these burners who weren't supporting me or Hillary Clinton in the election. Yes, I'm getting them out of office. Yes, we're putting in lobbyists. Yes, we're putting in corporatists. We're pulling in hillbots. The goddamn DNC. You have nowhere else to go. That should ring in your ear. How do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about somebody telling you you don't have a choice? You don't have a choice. You got to vote for us. You don't have a choice. What are you going to do? Yes, we purged them. Yes, we cheated. We can do whatever we want. You don't have anywhere to go. I'd argue that your strength is saying no. Your strength is saying, we may not have anywhere to go, but we're not going to you. Nothing else gets done until they understand that they're going to consistently lose. Period. That's period. I mean, I understand Cenk Ugyur, is terrified of Republicans. I get it. But until you are willing to say no, nothing takes place. You being on your talk show and having your shows and being progressive and going after Democrats and everything else is great, but if at the end of the day you turn around and vote for the Democrat, what does it matter? Political pressure is what matters. Your talk show doesn't. If you're willing to fold and go for Hillary Clinton after they cheat your guy, what does it matter? What does all this talk matter if you're not going to put it into action? No, I'm not fascinated with Republicans getting in office. I'm just not enamored with Democrats being in office, particularly when they don't represent my interests. You can take it or wait for your hero in falsely shining armor in 3 years. I'll be engaging in the meantime. Colin Daybell. Fair enough. That's fair criticism. By the same token, that also means that you accept my argument to some degree that you're just taking it. You're just taking it. It doesn't matter what they do. You just take it. It doesn't matter. I mean, at that point, it doesn't matter what takes place in politics. You're going to vote the Democrat regardless. That's my point. If it doesn't matter what takes place in politics and you're going to vote the Democrat regardless, why have a vote? Why have a vote? I mean, it makes your vote perfunctory. It's fucking amazing. Luca Clemente, Democratic Party is preventing any real progress. The party needs to die. I agree. K. Dable, no shot. I don't make laws. LOL. J. Scott. So then you just have to sit back and take it too. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Titus, fuck it. Vote Republican. At least they're honest about fucking us. Yeah, fuck that. That's a no. That's a no. Just because I despise one doesn't necessarily mean I love the other. I would make the case I despise both. Both are the problem. I just make the point that you vote for the people who represent your interests. If that's the Green Party, you vote the Green Party. Republicans in no way represent your interests. I don't want them in office. Now, I know people can make the case, well, dude, if you're not voting for a Republican, if you're not voting Democrat, your chances are vote for a Republican. That's not true. Votes don't work that way. You're trying to make this logical argument of the reason why you should vote for a Democrat. Blah, blah, blah. You vote for who you want to represent your interests. You vote for who you want to represent your interests. Tonight, I couldn't agree with you more, Jamal. Ah, Luca, thank you. That's the J, not the you, Jamal. Fair enough, but I think J and L were making the same argument. Titus, LOL. April Sanchez, LOL. Let's see. Progressives are principle. Anything else is neoliberal. Titus, that's not true. Yeah, I don't believe that. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. Let me see. April Sanchez. Cenk Ugyur tried to silence Sib Edmonds. He is filthy. Oh. Jay, TYT is Elementary School of Politics. Willing to bet Cenk Ugyur is CIA. I don't think CIA. Jay Scott, politics is moving to the right because the left is too divided. Yes, kind of. I don't think politics is moving to the right, if I'm being honest. I think people who are getting elected are to the right. But that's a different thing than what's going on in the population itself. Look, they just don't want anybody fake. If you had a Democrat who was representing what he's supposed to represent, creating a clear distinction between what's currently there, then that guy may get elected. But if you're choosing between a milquetoast Democrat who you believe is lying to you and a Republican who, is going to fuck you over, but at least he's, like you say, he's telling you he's fucking you over, you're not going to reward the milquetoast Democrat just for being the secondary candidate. These guys are clinging to identity as if the entire country is on board with this identity thing. 60-some% of the country is white. And let's be honest, there's a percentage of that country that's not necessarily on board with this multiculturalism thing. If you've alienated part of the base in that way, meaning part of the demographic in that way, you have a large part of the demographic that just don't vote because they don't necessarily believe represent their interests, then your share of the voting population is narrowed significantly. It's narrowed significantly. Doesn't necessarily mean it's moving to the right. It just does mean that the right is more animated when it comes to voting in this way. Particularly when you have a large part of the population that's checked out the process because they believe it doesn't matter. They believe their lives are getting hard, just external factors, but they don't necessarily make the association between politics and the things that go on in their day-to-day life. Look, I don't think that progressives are... Look, they are principled, don't get me wrong. But they're human beings just like anybody else. I've seen quote-unquote progressives take positions that were insane in order to defend or go after something else. The moment that they get bound to a particular position or person or anything else, they act just like anybody else. So, they're people. It's not like they may be more principled than other people just because they have a bias towards a certain thing. But what would they do in defense of that bias? Like, what would they say? What would they do? What would they rationalize? They're just human beings, like anybody else. Let's see. How will voting in 2018? Are Justice Democrats able to have their own separate campaign platform rather than stick to the stock standard DNC platform? I thought they did have their own platform. I mean, they were pretty lefty platform. I mean, in regards to American politics. Bob Ramirez, 74% were white as of 2015. Bob, it's not that high. But let's just say it's up there. It's not that high. At least I don't think it is. The Dalai Lama was CIA. No, but MJ Wing, yes, green. Yes, I voted green. I voted Jill Stein. I was proud to make the vote for Jill Stein. Yeah, this is just advice. This is just advice. They would never see this video. They would never watch this video. But I know some people have a go at Cenk on this point. I gotta be honest. I take him at his word. Like, I take him at his word that he's like, I want to do something. I'm going to make Justice Democrats. I'm going to take back the party, everything. I take him at his word. I take him at his word that that's what he wants to do. The question becomes, is he going to, is what you're doing, is your strategy in line with accomplishing the goals that you're talking about accomplishing? That society I'm talking about is my goal. Getting from point A to point B without falling into some kind of nuclear disaster, without finding some kind of, ecological disaster. That's my goal. I have no expectation of that goal being created in my lifetime. I have no expectation of getting to that particular point. But I do want to move the ball forward. Do I move it forward by being complicit and voting for one Democrat after the next? Even when that Democrat does whatever that Democrat wants to do. Personally, I think rewarding Democrats for not representing your interests furthers the fact that they don't represent your interests. Hey, they're rewarding me. They're giving me votes for something I'm not doing. I can just continue to not do what I'm saying I'm doing. So, all right, guys, I will leave it at that. Look, I know it's somewhat morbid, but as a bright spot, I want to end on a bright spot. Assume for the moment that you are 300, 400 years in the past. And you are just dragged onto the island as a slave. Now, you're in this context where you were on a boat for God knows how long. I think like 3 months or something. Chained to one person who you couldn't necessarily speak the language with. You get dragged onto this land. This guy is screaming at you. This guy is putting you up. You might have had a family. You might have had something. You were ripped away from your homeland. And even though you understand yourself to be a man, a human being, a monster is diminishing you into the degree of a slave. That entire culture is looking at you and a particular context. The entire edifice of the culture itself is turned around and making you feel like you are subhuman, you're less than, this was your station, you're here for a reason. This is who you were, this is who you were philosophically were supposed to be based upon the context of the society that you're in. Less than human. 3/5 to be exact. Say you had a dream at that point. A dream, actual real dream. And you're seeing yourself in a completely different context. You're not the slave that people are making you out to be. You're walking around in a society with other people in that society, and they're interacting with you in a level of equality. It shocks the shit out of you. You can't believe it. You wake up and you tell somebody, like, holy shit, I had this dream. And he would tell you, it's fucking insane. The world doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. This is what you are. This is what you will always be. Stop talking about that stuff. You're going to make yourself insane. Accept your station in life. The people who want to accept their station in life, for the most part, keep society the way that society is. The people who are looking at these things from a larger perspective, saying things do move in a particular direction, and they take for fucking ever to get into that direction, and there are fits and there are stalls, but ultimately move in a particular direction. Those people tend to be right. It's not easy. It doesn't look well. Between Roman times and now, there have been some nasty and disgusting things that have taken place on this globe. But it does seem to move in a particular direction. It's not that I believe that it's going to be this kind of roses and rainbows and everybody's unicorns. There does need to be somewhat of a value system change in the way we behave, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that won't necessarily take place. That whatever calamity befalls us, whatever takes place, that this idea that humanity never grows up, it's not necessarily true. That things always get worse, it's not necessarily true. There are people who believe that. It's not necessarily true, it's just what they believe. People believe all sorts of things. People believe there's a sky god. That's just their beliefs. What's real is that society does tend to move to the left. Society does tend to get better. It just takes for fucking ever to get there. And we can be ensconced in our idea of how society is now. I'm saying don't get ensconced in how society can be now. Get in this idea of what society can be. Be very clear about what society can be. And understand that you're not stuck with the confines of the way we arrange ourselves in this particular way. There's no God above that's forcing us to be this way. We arrange ourselves purely for this idea of perspective. We say it's this way because so this is the way it is. It can change. It's not real. Things change. Your society does change. It takes forever to do it. Sometimes there are things that happen that befall your society, such as calamities. And sometimes it takes those things to blow up, get destroyed, get undermined, and all this other stuff for something new to be created. If you were one of the slaves in Roman times, if you were one of the people who were in one of these other nations, say Britain, say you were one of the lower class in one of those places, say you were one of the lower castes in India, whatever. There have been all sorts of societies all around the world that had a quote-unquote lower class. All societies around the world created these systems that make that lower class feel like that lower class was supposed to be there because it allowed the status quo to maintain what the status quo was. It gave justification to the behaviors of the ruling elite in that particular society. I'm saying our society is the same way. It will go bust at some point. And the thing that comes after it, hopefully, will be something better. It will move us further to the left. It may not be in our lifetime, but doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be. And doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be. Just making this point that having an idea in your head that it can change is an important thing. Because if we're looking at the arc of history, we can find that that usually turns out to be true. So I'll leave it at that. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, and subscribe. And of course, you can always support Patreon. Thanks everybody.